the Happy Afloat podcast, tales of family adventures at sea.
Hello and welcome. I am Jason, skipper of Happy Afloat. Meet my motley crew. Leon.
Hello.
Conrad.
Ahoy there, shipmates.
And my lovely wife, Sarah.
Hello. If you are new to the podcast, then welcome. But don't start here.
You can if you want to, but this is part 12 of our summer adventure, and you will have missed out on some good episodes.
If you want to follow this sailing adventure from the beginning,
Hit the rewind button and start at episode 13.
Which is part 1 of the story.
For old hands, grab a pew.
And we'll begin.
in this episode,
We continue exploring more of the Outer Hebrides.
More tales from our summer adventure.
Okay, where have we got to?
We had spent a couple of days exploring Vatersay.
And now it was time to move on.
Our sailing to motoring ratio was a very sad statistic.
The lack of wind so far on our summer adventure was causing a real concern.
We couldn't keep chomping through diesel. It is noisy and expensive.
And we did, after all, have a sailing boat.
The day's forecast looked okay-ish, force 5 to 6, but it would be a downwind run.
We set off, heading northwards.
With the intention of exploring the island of South Uist, starting with the anchorages at Loch Skipport.
Soon we were comfortably zooming along at over 7 knots with just the headsail.
And then at no knots.
According to the speed log in the cockpit, how could it be?
The impeller log had clearly stopped working, but whilst on passage and speeding through the water, we didn't fancy trying to fix it.
That job would have to wait until we were at anchor.
Passing the island of Eriskay marked a new milestone for us.
Beyond Eriskay, it would be uncharted waters. Well, uncharted for us.
We had visited Eriskay a few years earlier. So far on this summer adventure, with a couple of exceptions, we were covering familiar ground.
Now we were forging a path into the unknown.
Here be dragons.
At some point, we must have been in range of a mobile phone mast on the Isle of Skye.
We briefly got some phone reception, just enough to let Nanny and Grandad know that we were still alive.
Before being plunged into another phone reception abyss.
The end of our fast sail to Loch Skipport was met with drizzle.
An unwelcoming gusty force 7 as the wind was being funneled down the mountains.
And the icing on the cake
Was the unexpected and uncharted fish farm, right in the middle of our anchorage.
This anchoring experience was proving to be not very much fun at all.
We now had a much reduced area to anchor in.
The strong wind was blowing us around what little space we had.
And then the anchor, for the first time in our ownership, refused to set.
Now we were dragging and heading towards the fish farm.
Recovering the anchor was also a stressful event, because of...
You know, the wind, the fish farm, etc.
The second attempt with the anchor was a lot more successful.
Although I kept a careful eye on the transits, making sure we stayed put.
After a few hours, we were confident that the anchor was doing what anchors are supposed to do.
So we could turn our attention to fixing the impeller log.
It's always a little unsettling to purposely expose a boat sinking hole in your hull.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of removing the speed log while in the water. The thin plastic housing starts to look very fragile, and visions of not being able to stem the flow of gushing water plays on my mind.
Not too much water entered the boat during the withdrawal of the log and the insertion of the blanking plate.
We had a new crew member. A shrimp had made its home in the impeller housing.
I asked Mum if I could keep Shrimpy as a pet. She said ask your dad. Dad suggested a rock would be a more suitable pet option on a boat.
The stowaway was popped overboard. Hopefully, Shrimpy wouldn't relocate back to the impeller log housing.
We were still in a phone and internet wilderness.
And bitterly regretted having forked out for a Vodafone SIM card, especially for our Outer Hebridean adventures.
The damp air made the night feel cold.
So we dug out our fleecy sleeping bag liners,
which are essentially a large fleece blanket sewn up like a sleeping bag.
They are so toasty.
After a rather breezy night, the wind took a holiday the next day.
Perfect for moving to the nearby anchorage, whose name must fire the imaginations of all kids, big or small.
The Potterheads were excited to be visiting the Wizard Pool and see Wizard Island.
To gain access to the Wizard Pool is a trial for those with nerves of steel. Do you accept the challenge?
First, you must squeeze past the fish farm of obstruction.
Be wary of the rocks of misfortune that lay in wait just below the surface.
Then brave the narrow entrance and behold the pool of wizards.
Our hopes of having the anchorage all to ourselves
were not to be.
Another yacht was enjoying the tranquility.
But they took one look at us and cleared out. Sarah, can you give us a description of Wizard Pool?
It's a sort of circular anchorage with a little island in the middle of it. Wizard Island.
Any other features?
Trees.
About that passage that goes on to Kettle Pool.
Do you know what? I can't remember that. Now you're saying, I know. Was that a narrow channel into another pool?
Yeah, there's a very narrow channel that's about 2 boats width wide that you can squeeze. We didn't squeeze through.
Squeeze into there.
But we did see another boat.
That was it. It was like from where we were anchored, it's to the right, wasn't it? Yeah, there was another boat. Because you could go in from the top as well.
Yeah, there's another larger entrance to that pool, but they do join.
Yeah, no, I'd forgotten about Kettle Pool. Why did we choose Wizard Pool over it? Because it's Wizard Island.
Wizard Pool with Wizard. Well, yeah, tell us about Wizard Island then.
It was a small, uninhabited island.
Island rock. Big rock.
I'd like to refer to it as an island, but essentially I suppose it's a rock with lots of heather and other green shrubs and pink shrubs growing on it.
While we had the anchorage to ourselves, it was the perfect opportunity to train the boys on how to use our dinghy and outboard. Right, Leon, do you remember the engine checks?
Yes. First of all, check if you've got fuel.
We should have. We didn't use it a lot since the last time we checked it.
Secondly, lift the air, slide the air in.
Yeah. Open the air vent.
Allow the fuel in.
Yeah, turn the fuel on.
Put it into neutral.
Yes, in neutral. All right, because we started this morning, so we don't need choke. It's not cold.
Make sure it's on start and not restart or anything else. Put that in, otherwise it won't
Put
start.
Put the kill cord in. Make a bit of room. Just start the engine. Here we go. First time.
And they were thrilled to be whizzing around Wizard Island.
Although whizzing is a relative term, as our dinghy and outboard combination is quite slow.
It was time to find a suitable place to land.
in the hope of getting some phone reception.
Easier said than done. Feel like right? Swallows and Amazons here, do you? Which way are we going? Your side?
There's a rock there. Look.
Is it big rock or little rock?
We'll go your side, I think. Yeah. Shimmy this side. Okay, come on, keep going.
Largest rock just.
How much has the tide got to fall?
About 2 metres.
2 metres. Oh dear.
Do we want to stop here?
Well, where else do you suggest?
Well, I suggested that other ran there.
Okay, let's go around there then.
Right. Need to climb off?
Yeah. Well, can you? And take a line with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Take a long line with you.
Or at least if you get something and then you can hold us. Hold on, we'll help you to get across. You might have to crawl on your knees.
Another one step off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try not to fall in.
Right, we can sit in the middle bit, it's balance boat.
This is the rock.
Yeah, okay, do a big bowling round it or something.
Don't do it too tight at the moment. Because you need to allow for the rise and fall of the tide.
Yeah.
Just hold it until Mum gets out and then we can adjust it.
Do you want me to get out next? After a hike up a hill,
We had a phone signal.
Presumably from the Isle of Skye.
But no internet.
the extremes we go to just to send a couple of work emails.
In the afternoon, we took turns kayaking around the pool.
Very relaxing.
Just outside the pool was another large fish farm.
And remembering the advice we had received from the locals on the Calais Canal about escaped fish.
We got our rods out.
But alas, there was no fish supper that night.
The wind picked up overnight and made the fishing rods on the pushbit sing. A new day and a new destiny.
We needed to hunt down some internet.
For our online lessons.
And for my work.
Lochmaddy looked like our best bet, as there was a marina and a ferry terminal.
Surely there must be phone reception there, or at least a Wi-Fi connection.
The forecast was a bit breezy. For 6 to 7.
It was going to be another downwind run.
So we were happy with just a well-reefed headsail.
It was a pretty comfortable sail. The same cannot be said for the 3 boats that were heading in the opposite direction.
They had a very bouncy ride.
The wind was forecasted to be strong for another day or so.
And there was going to be plenty of rain.
We didn't fancy being tied to a pontoon while the wind was howling.
So when we got to Lochmaddy, we dropped the anchor and sat it out in a sheltered spot for a couple of days.
How did we pass the time?
Well, husband dearest, I'm glad you asked. We recorded a podcast.
Do you remember which episode it was?
I'm guessing it's the one that was probably got an awful lot of wind in the background. Oh, how to anchor.
Very appropriate. I think it's actually episode 12. So if you actually listen back to that episode, you can probably hear the wind gusting outside the mobile studio.
So, how else did we keep entertained?
Movie night.
What do we watch?
Pixels!
What do you think out of 5?
5.
5?
5.
10.
10?
Wait, did you just say
You've
5?
still not got the hang of this out of thing, have you? 1 from me.
We also had an energy-saving, old-school entertainment of storytelling.
Anyone who grew up in the 80s must remember the Fighting Fantasy book series of Choose Your Own Adventures. I spent many enjoyable hours with Death Trap Dungeon and The Warlock of Fartop Mountain and had quite a large collection of these books. Sarah, when you were younger, what was your favourite book in the series?
I never read them. I was more of a, was it Mallory Towers and St Clair's Enid Blyton books? They were like...
Enid Blyton? Where were you born? The 1950s?
No.
So you weren't into fighting fantasy?
I was not into fighting fantasy. I don't remember ever reading a choose your own storybook.
What?
I know.
Oh dear. I guess it's more of a boy thing then. Okay, boys, give us a quick explanation of how fighting fantasy works and how we play it as a team.
Fighting fantasy is, as we already mildly explained, a choose-your-own-adventure game. But because we're all playing together, to make sure we don't need to make numerous character sheets, we play it with a little twist.
Because it's usually a single-player game, isn't it?
Yes, it's always designed as single player, because otherwise it makes it way too easy. So what do we do, Leon, to make it multiplayer?
We make decisions as a team.
We have one person that reads out the story, and they're sort of like the dungeon master if you're using D&D terms. We play one character, but we just make decisions as a group team effort, don't we?
Yep, we do. And my favourite book in the series is Citadel of Chaos. The first book I finished, I've only actually finished 3. Citadel of Chaos, Death Trap Dungeon, and Crystal of Storms.
The only book I've played is Eye of the Dragon. I think I've also played The Warlock of Firetop Mountain.
We never finished it, but we used to play together. We always ran out of spells at the last moment and fell over with the Ganges on the stairs.
Don't spoil it! The book series had been republished many times.
But a brand new book had just been released.
The Gates of Death.
And we'd been working our way through the book as a team effort for a while.
You are in a secret passageway with a narrow hole on one side and a small doorway on the other. The walls have been crudely carved out of the rock. There is purple light coming through what looks like a barred window at the eastern end. Do you want to investigate the window, crawl through the hole, go through the small doorway, or return to the kitchen?
Small doorway?
I was going to say investigate the hole.
Yeah, hole.
Okay, fine.
Yes, we know that glowing purple are demon traps, so we want to avoid those.
The hole in the wall leads into a small cave, lit by glowing green and red crystals embedded in the walls.
Now we had plenty of time to finally complete the quest. How did it go, boys?
Very well. Although we did have one point when the rules weren't clear about what to do, didn't we, Leon?
Yes, we did. What was it?
Yeah, what was it?
It was when you had to reduce your strength to get defeated by the obsidian gods.
Hold on, no spoilers. So, what do we think of the Gates of Death overall?
It
Is brilliant.
Yeah, it kept us entertained for a couple of months, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Eventually the weather cleared and it was time to check out Lochmaddy Marina.
But that is a story for another time.
Thank you for the lovely reviews. It really makes us happy to know that you are enjoying our podcast. Thank you.
If you have any questions, send an email or a posting on Facebook. All the relevant links are on the website, happyafloat.com.
If you would like to help us grow, spread the word. It's nice to share.
And don't forget to follow and rate us in your favourite podcast app.
happyafloat.com.
Next time aboard Happy Afloat.
We explore more of Lochmaddy and beyond.
Until next time, happy sailing.